The Lord of the Rings delivers scene after scene of cinematic magnificence. But there's one sequence, tucked near the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, that often gets overlooked. It's the final battle of the Fellowship, where character is revealed through action and where each member shows us who they truly are. Whether it's Aragorn's fearless stand against an onslaught of Uruk-hai, or Merry and Pippin's selfless bravery as they distract the enemy to buy Frodo time, these aren't just heroic flourishes, they're glimpses into the souls of our characters, quietly foreshadowing who they're destined to become. But at the heart of it all lies one of the most poetic death scenes in cinema, the fall of Boromir. In this video, I want to break down how Peter Jackson crafts one of the most poignant deaths in the entire trilogy, and how, through the precise use of camera and sound, he immortalizes Boromir as a hero who went down fighting. A hero worth remembering. Now, I haven't met a single person who hasn't seen The Lord of the Rings, but if you happen to be one of the rare few, don't worry. I'll give you a bit of context so you can follow along and appreciate this scene for what it is. And if you have seen the film, feel free to skip ahead to the breakdown. Timestamps are in the description. Frodo Baggins inherits the One Ring from his uncle Bilbo, an ancient artifact of immense power, forged by the Dark Lord Sauron to dominate all life in Middle-earth. The ring can only be destroyed in the fires of Mount Doom, and Frodo, understanding the burden he now carries, volunteers to make the journey to Mordor. He's not alone. A fellowship is formed, an unlikely band of individuals with each member vowing to protect Frodo and help him complete his task. Along the way, they endure brutal trials, including the devastating loss of their guide and protector, Gandalf, who falls while facing the Balrog in the depths of Moria. Worn down and pursued relentlessly, the Fellowship now finds rest in the forests of Amon Hen. The group is scattered, and Frodo finds himself alone, only moments after a troubling encounter with Boromir. The scene begins quietly. Aragorn finds Frodo alone and shaken, and even this small interaction between them carries a kind of poetic weight. There's something delicate happening here, something in the sound design, the camera work, and the blocking that subtly lifts the moment into something far more significant. Because this is where the ring tempts Aragorn. Frodo tells him the truth. Boromir tried to take the ring, and after a moment of hesitation, Frodo reveals it, holding it in his hand. He asks Aragorn plainly,
"Would you destroy it?"
As Frodo speaks, Aragorn steps forward, almost involuntarily, drawn to the ring like it has a gravitational pull. And in sync with that step, the camera pushes in slowly, tightening an already framed close-up, compressing the space, and mimicking the corrupting pull of the ring. The ring whispers, "This is Aragorn's test." And then he does something quite profound. He kneels. He lowers himself to Frodo's eye level. A simple piece of blocking that says everything. Aragorn isn't above Frodo. He doesn't claim power. He shares the weight. And in a soft, steady voice, he delivers the line,
"I would have gone with you to the end. Into the very fires of Mordor."
What makes this moment hit even harder is that it comes immediately after we've seen Boromir fail the same test. One scene earlier, Boromir tried to take the ring by force, but here Aragorn resists. Not because the ring has no power over him, but because he chooses humility over control, and in doing so there's a quiet, mutual understanding between the two. Frodo must take this journey alone. The ring is simply too powerful, too corrupting for a fellowship to form around it. To stay would only end in ruin. One by one, it would break them all. Now, there are three distinct shots in this sequence that, whether by design or instinct, have seared themselves into the minds of audiences. They're striking images, compositions of such visual clarity and emotional weight that they serve to immortalize the characters within them. These aren't just beautiful frames, they're windows into who these characters are. Each one tells a story, and the first is about to arrive. After Aragorn sees Frodo's sword, sting, glowing blue, a warning that orcs are near, he tells him to run. And now we arrive at the first of our three defining shots. Aragorn steps calmly, almost casually around the beacon, sword in hand. The image becomes slow motion as the camera cranes upwards, revealing a small army of Uruk-hai waiting beyond. If you don't know, these Uruk-hai have been sent by Saruman to retrieve Frodo and find the ring. The slow motion paired with the crane upwards isn't just for stylistic flair, it's intentional. Slow motion appears only twice in this scene, once here with Aragorn and again later when Boromir charges to protect Merry and Pippin and when he is struck down. The visual language links the two moments, suggesting that both men are stepping into something mythic, something final, but more on that later. The slow motion here suspends time, forcing us to sit in the gravity of Aragorn's decision, the decision of him beginning to accept his fate. And the crane upwards elevates him, literally and figuratively, placing him in a moment larger than life. It's as if Peter Jackson is saying, "Watch, remember this matters." We remain in slow motion as Aragorn walks towards the charging Uruk-hai, deliberate, composed. And then, as still clashes with still, the illusion breaks. The frame rate returns to normal and we're in the fight. What confirms that Aragorn is embracing his fate is what he shouts as he dives into the Uruk-hai moments later. Elendil, the name of his ancient ancestor. If we go by the movies, up until now, Aragorn has been a man running from his lineage. But here, leaping into chaos, he invokes his bloodline. It's the quiet turning point where the ranger begins to accept the weight of the crown. Legolas and Gimli soon join the fray, not just to fight, but to buy Aragorn time. It's a subtle yet telling beat. These two aren't reacting, they're choosing to step into the danger so Aragorn can slip away and protect Frodo. Now from here until the end, most of the fighting is cut between static, locked off shots and handheld shots. The combination of stable and unstable framing and the fast cutting disorients us, just enough to make the battle feel overwhelming, without ever losing its visual logic. As with all the battles in The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's direction never loses sight of the viewer. The choreography is sharp, the geography is clear. We're never confused or struggling to piece together what's happening. Instead, we track every beat, and because we can follow it, we feel it. We get one of the most touching moments in the entire scene, one that speaks volumes about Merry and Pippin. It's a quiet display of their true bravery, and a subtle foreshadowing of the little soldiers they're yet to become. The camera dollies forward on both Frodo and Merry and Pippin, cutting between their close-ups. Frodo rejects their offer to hide with them, and in that moment, Merry and Pippin understand. Frodo must go on this journey alone. This technique is often used during moments of emotional revelation or change. The push-in mirrors the shift happening internally between the characters. Their understanding of one another deepens even without words. And by cutting between the two push-ins, Jackson places us right in the emotional middle ground. We're asked to empathize with both perspectives, to feel Frodo's isolation and Merry and Pippin's resolve. It turns a small beat into something deeply human. What follows is simple but powerful. Merry and Pippin distracting the Uruk-hai and drawing them away so Frodo can escape. It's a brief moment in the middle of the chaos, but Jackson frames it with care, using simple camera language to mark its emotional significance, and because of that, it lingers with us long after the battle ends. Merry and Pippin are quickly overwhelmed, circled by the sheer number of Uruk-hai chasing them. And then, our next slow motion shot. This time, it's on Boromir. He charges into frame, sword raised, coming to their aid. The slow motion here feels like a direct callback to Aragorn's earlier moment, as if Peter Jackson is saying, here too is a man stepping into his fate. Boromir stops a two-handed axe mid-swing, an attack that would have easily killed either hobbit, and joins the fight without hesitation. It's the first time we've seen Boromir since he tried to take the ring from Frodo. And now, in this moment, he saves Merry and Pippin. No speeches, no apologies, just action. And with that, the scene begins to turn poetic. And as if Peter Jackson is priming the poetic instinct in us, we cut to one of the most beautifully composed shots in the entire scene. Our second of the 3 distinct images that have seared themselves into the minds of audiences. It's a wide, static frame. On the left, Legolas stands in full profile, picking off Uruk-hai with direct precision. On the right, Aragorn is pinned against a tree, locked in a desperate fight for his life. They're both crowned by beams of light piercing through the forest. The moment is framed with reverence, and for good reason. In a single image, Peter Jackson captures 2 kinds of heroism, control and desperation. Legolas represents grace under pressure, untouched, focused, almost otherworldly. Aragorn, however, is struggling. The man destined to be king is, in this moment, losing. And that contrast is important. He's not invincible. He's not some mythic god among men. He's like us, and this is what makes his character arc, his stepping into fate, all the more compelling. We cut to an over-the-shoulder shot on Legolas after he shoots the Uruk-hai wrestling Aragorn. Then, the Horn of Gondor rings out. Legolas turns in a close-up, instantly alert, confirming what we already suspect. Something is wrong.
The Horn of Gondor.
Boromir.
The sharp focus on his reaction tells us everything. We feel the urgency. Aragorn bolts forward, charging towards the sound, and in doing so, the scene begins to shift. The camera is no longer passive in capturing the action, it starts to move, and that movement pulls us into one of the greatest shots in the entire trilogy. A sweeping aerial shot, rigged to a zipline, glides through the trees, racing downhill with terrifying momentum. It reveals a wave of Uruk-hai pouring through the forests, charging toward the sound of the horn. At the same time, the general score is overtaken by the darker, more mechanical music associated with Isengard, subtly elevating the threat. We don't necessarily see the danger rising yet, but we hear it. And because we hear it, we feel it. And this isn't just Peter Jackson flexing his blockbuster muscle. The shot has purpose. It's showing us scale, just how many enemies Boromir is about to face, and more importantly, how far away Aragorn is from him. This is geography as tension. What's clever here is Jackson's choice of camera movement. Epic scale is often captured with wide dolly shots that track laterally, offering the audience a panoramic sweep of chaos. But here, he opts for an overhead glide, looking down, not across. And that choice cuts beautifully into what comes next, a static overhead shot of Boromir himself. It's brief, but it's meaningful. I've touched on this in other breakdowns, and I'll say it again. When death is imminent or looming, filmmakers seem to instinctively gravitate towards overhead shots, looking directly down at characters. It's as if, in that moment, God is watching. It's powerful, and I believe it unconsciously primes the audience for what's coming. We see Boromir fighting off the Uruk-hai, Merry and Pippin helping as best they can, which is such a beautiful little callback to when Boromir was teaching them specifically how to fight with swords. They mimic his actions here. The trio becomes overwhelmed by the sheer number of Uruk-hai. The score intensifies. We cut rapidly between brutal action and brief slow-motion glimpses, Jackson pushing and pulling the rhythm to create unease. But then something shifts. The soundscape begins to strip down. Metal clashing and the grunts of the Uruk-hai start to fall away, and in that vacuum our attention is forced to settle on what's coming. Lurtz, the leader of the Uruk-hai scouts, steps into view. He draws his bow. The moment is drawn out as we cut between him and Boromir. Jackson isn't trying to surprise us, we know what's coming, and he does this for several reasons. Cutting between Boromir and Lurtz is Jackson's way of stretching time, turning what could have been a quick violent moment into something almost ceremonial. It becomes a kind of cinematic reckoning. Boromir, the man who faltered, now stands defiant, protecting the hobbits with what little strength he has left. Drawing out this beat gives the audience time to absorb that redemption, not intellectually but emotionally. Lurtz releases the arrow and the music cuts out entirely. It's like the world goes silent. No score, no clash of swords, just the sound of impact. The absence of music makes the moment land like a gut punch. We're not cushioned by emotion, we're forced to feel the full, brutal finality of it. The music begins to swell up again, somber now as Boromir continues to fight on. Falling to his knees on the second arrow, he locks eyes with Merry and Pippin, and it's as if in this moment he knows he's done, but seeing them gives him his last ounce of strength to keep fighting to protect them. We get a few long lens shots on Boromir that completely isolate him and compress the space around him. It's as if the camera language is already beginning to say goodbye. The third arrow hits and Boromir goes down. Poetry is written. Now, if you've never read the books, Boromir's outburst, pinning Frodo down and trying to take the ring, doesn't come as a total surprise. Peter Jackson carefully lays the groundwork for that moment, devoting just enough screen time to sow the seed of doubt in our minds. Early on, we hear Boromir argue that the ring should be used, taken to Gondor to defeat the enemy. And later, on the snowy slopes of Carid Harris, we get the telling moment where Boromir holds the ring in his hands a little too long, until Aragorn has to step in and remind him to return it to Frodo. All of this, the temptation, the faltering, serves as the perfect setup for his redemption. Because Boromir's attempt to take the ring isn't where his story ends, it's where it turns. His last stand is the payoff to that earlier fall. A man who, had the Fellowship never formed, would have likely stayed in Gondor fighting to protect his people until the end. And that's exactly what he does here. Wounded and exhausted, he gives everything to defend Merry and Pippin. In the end, he returns to the only thing he truly values, being a protector. Merry and Pippin are taken by the Uruk-hai. Boromir is left behind on his knees, bloodied and broken as the rest of the Uruk-hai move past him. It's all captured in slow motion, the chaos of battle now stretched into something quiet, mournful, and mythic. And here we arrive at our third and final striking image, a frame that doesn't just conclude the fight, but immortalizes Boromir in the minds of the audience. Lurtz stands tall on the left, bow drawn. On the right, Boromir kneels among the bodies of the Uruk-hai he fought to protect Merry and Pippin. He's not victorious, but he's unyielding. The contrast is stark, power versus courage, brutality versus sacrifice. And the camera holds, giving the moment the reverence it deserves. Boromir doesn't cower from death, but instead holds Lurtz's gaze. This is no longer just a battle scene, it's a farewell, a shot that immortalizes Boromir in our collective memory, as a hero who went down fighting to save others. It's a powerful image, and in this one still frame, Boromir becomes something greater than a fallen warrior. He becomes legend. It's one of the greatest character arcs ever put to the screen, and one of the most poetic deaths in cinema. And Peter Jackson does everything he can to elevate the moment into something eternal.
I would have followed you, my brother. My captain. My king.